Did you get high?
No. No. That's kind of funny, though.
Is that how we're going to start the episode?
No. No. I have all this stuff typed out already, and I'm just like sitting there looking at the recording thing just bouncing around.
Are you sure you didn't get high?
I am positive. Maybe I should have.
No.
Oh, I don't know. Hey, welcome to the podcast. Today we're doing Pet Sematary because I can't get my shit together. I don't have a good intro. I'm all over the place. But yeah, today we're going to do Pet Sematary from 1989. I was a whole 1 year old when this came out.
It's an old movie.
Yeah, 1989. I thought that the remastered version looked really good, though.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to
Really
make a
good.
joke. Does it make you feel old when you see how old the movie is? But actually, that was my first thought was, wow, they did an amazing job remastering this movie.
Yeah, I thought it was going to look... Because every time I've seen Pet Sematary, I think it's been on either VHS or cable. I feel like I remember seeing it on like the USA Network a lot. But this is the first time I've seen like a remastered DVD version of it, and it looked really good.
Blu-ray version.
Blu-ray. I'm sorry. I don't mean
Makes
to
a
offend the
difference.
Blu-ray fans out there. They're like, don't call it a DVD.
Yeah,
It's a Blu-ray.
that's like a $5 difference.
They probably
That
quit remastering things into DVD a long time ago.
You remember when we did Sleepaway Camp, how fucking old it looked on my big ass TV, and this actually looked really good, and they're only 7 years apart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're not super far apart, but first was I got a little bit of news. I like to throw a little bit of news in here. So Chucky season 3 trailer just dropped, and everyone's favorite killer doll is. Are you ready for this? Is heading to the White House.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
So this is
you
next.
heard that right. He is going to be in the White House.
This is the stop before he heads to space.
It seems that the president's son has come into the possession of Chucky.
This is so fucking ridiculous.
This sounds unbelievable. That's why I had to put this in here. And so I guess I watched the trailer because the trailer just came out. And he starts murdering people around the White House. I can't even get through this.
Maybe this isn't such a bad idea, though.
Yeah. I'm like, but the White House has cameras. You know, like if people started popping up mysteriously dead at the White House, they would just like watch, the footage. There's,
I don't know.
So
There's
much
some
security there.
Cocaine that ends up in the White House.
Apparently.
People can't find out who that was.
Maybe it was Chucky.
It's Chucky's cocaine for sure.
This is not a show. That's a documentary. So this is ridiculous. But so Devon Sawa will be returning to the show as a new character. He was in season 1.
Who's the podcast kid?
He's no.
That's the kid's name in the
Devon
show.
Sawa is the guy from like Final Destination and Idle Hands. He plays in the first season of Chucky, he plays the dad and he plays the uncle. Remember the dad dies in like the first episode. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling Chucky season 1 for you. But,
you're not spoiling much.
But yeah, he goes to live with his identical twin uncle, who is also played by same actor. And he is coming back to play a third character in this show. Interesting. Yeah, so in Jennifer Tilly will also be returning. That's always good. No complaints about that. I feel like nowadays you almost can't have Chucky without Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah, what is she playing? Her third character? Or is she playing her famous self again?
I don't know.
She plays Tiffany and she plays Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah, I remember. I haven't kept up with the Chucky series.
I watched the first season. I'm going to be honest. It was tough.
It's just too... Oh, man, it's too goofy to me now.
It seems like it's
too much comedy.
It's dedicated towards teenagers nowadays. And not as much at the... its fan base.
I didn't hate it, but I just didn't love it either. And I just kind of forgot about it. And it's had a whole entire season that went by that I haven't seen. Yeah, it streams on Peacock though, so and I don't have Peacock anymore, so I can't watch it.
It
But
used to be on something else because when I watched it, I want to say it was Hulu when I watched the first
yeah,
season.
probably was. But so it premieres October 4th. Season 3 comes out October 4th. It's on USA Network / Sci-Fi. I don't know if they're the same channel now or
It was on Sci-Fi. I think it was when I had Hulu Live. That's probably how I watched it.
but yeah, it can now be streamed on Peacock. So there you go. If you're looking forward to seeing Chucky murder the president or something,
If you want to pay for Peacock now,
yeah, it's like $3 now. I don't know. So this is something we talked a little bit about. We actually had to get to the bottom of it because we were confused. Jason Blum announced this week that The Exorcist Believer will now be releasing to theaters 1 week earlier than planned. It is going to be coming out now October 6th instead of what, the 13th?
yeah, Friday the 13th, which was a great day for it to come out.
Yeah, he put out a tweet and said basically, thanks Taylor Swift. Now I have to move this movie up earlier a week. Did not understand what that meant. Apparently, he doesn't want to compete with the Taylor Swift concert movie, tour movie, something like that. I'm not really hip to the Taylor Swift film. I don't know. But yeah, originally we thought maybe it was just didn't want to compete with ticket sales, but from what we understand, it's movie theaters want to show the Taylor Swift thing on as many screens as they
That's
can.
just fucking crazy, man. Fuck you, Taylor Swift. Pick a different date. You could have
such
did
a
Saturday the 14th,
such a horse girl
Thursday the
move.
12th. I just can't imagine it playing in every like there being such a demand that it has to. I mean, they're not going to show any other movies when that shit comes out.
Yeah, I don't know. But hey, we're getting the other movies sooner, so
I
whatever.
know, but still, like Friday the 13th was a thought that was a cool date for it.
If you don't know about this next thing, gonna let you know now. So they're actually going to be doing the original Exorcist, the good one. It's going to be turning 50, and they're going to be showing it in a bunch of movie theaters across the country, and that is October 3rd, I believe. It's the beginning of October. We had, I think, at least 2 theaters where we are that are going to be showing it. I think it's for one day. It has a little documentary about the filming locations too that's going to play right before the movie. So if you want to see the original Exorcist in theaters, look for that because it's not super well known, but a lot of theaters are doing it. So check that out.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. It'll be our only
Yeah.
chance of watching the OG Exorcist on the big screen.
I would rather go see the original Exorcist. Like if I had to pick, like they're about the same week almost. If I had to pick between seeing OG Exorcist or going to see the new one as soon as it came out, I would see the OG Exorcist for sure.
I agree. I agree with that.
Yep.
After you get done watching the Taylor Swift concert
Well, I'm
movie,
definitely gonna see Taylor Swift, but
yeah, I assume
uh,
so. Hopefully, it's not still taking up every fucking theater by then.
yeah, that's really all I put into the news. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff. There's always a lot of news out there, but those were kind of the big things I wanted to hit on. But
Oh, the House of a Thousand Corpses doing that as well.
oh
They don't.
yeah, House of a Thousand Corpses is going to be hitting some theaters too, and that is October 8th. So look for that too. There's all these horror movies that are going to be hitting the theaters that haven't been in theaters in a really long time. Just I don't know. I guess just try to look and see what your theater has, and because they're not, I don't know, they're not really advertised. Like I'm only finding out because I'm in some groups and people are posting about them. But just kind of look for that stuff. It's I don't know. It's really hard to find, but it's going on. It's out there. All right, so Stephen King's Pet Sematary from 1989 is a supernatural horror film written by King himself and directed by Mary Lambert. It stars Dale Midkiff, Denise Crosby, Blaze Birdahl, and how do you say you're a Monsters fan? How do you say his last name?
Fred Gwynn.
Yeah, I thought that's how you said it.
I hope I'm saying that right.
I
That's
think
how
that's
I've
right.
always
I
pronounced it.
meant to check to be sure, but I'm pretty sure that's right. But Fred Gwynn and Miko Hughes as Gage Creed. Yeah, it was released on April 21st of 1989. It had a budget of $11.5 million and a box office of $89.5 million. Did pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, small budget, but a decent return. The sequel, Pet Cemetery 2, was released in 1992, and a remake was released in 2019. I wonder how good the remake did. I don't really remember.
I think the remake did pretty well in theaters.
Yeah,
Remember
it
it
probably
was
did
it
better than the
was
original.
we went and seen it in theaters. I remember it was that it was advertised very well. So I assume it probably did pretty good.
I've only seen it one time, and I can't remember how close it was to this movie.
Hmm.
Was it pretty much, you know, same exact story, or did they make any changes to it?
Well, I think there's slight changes, but I think the overall story is the same.
Hmm.
I don't remember like the wife having the sister part. I don't remember any of that part of the
Oh
story.
wow,
Um,
that's like
but I mean, I could be wrong. I can't remember movie I watched 2 weeks ago. So, um,
So the rating, so Rotten Tomato, it's got a 51%. IMDb gave it a 6.5 out of 10, and Letterboxd gave it a 3.2 out of 5 stars. That's okay.
yeah, that's pretty low. I think
You think that's low? Hmm. I mean, the 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb, I mean, I,
that's pretty low. I wouldn't go under a 7.
hmm. Yeah, I actually forgot to rate this movie when I was
Oh,
doing this stuff earlier.
God,
So my
man,
rating's gonna
you
be
did get high. Jesus Christ!
my rating is going to be
Don't just
off the
copy
top
one
of
of
my head.
those.
I'm just gonna have you go first, and then I'm just gonna copy whatever you say. So, you wanna jump into the plot?
Yeah, let's do it. If you remember to write it
I
down.
did. I wrote all this down. So we are introduced to the Creed family. We got Lewis, Rachel, Ellie, and Gage. I believe Ellie is I think she's like, I don't know, does it say her name? I think she's like 8, 9 years old.
Yeah, she's somewhere in there.
Yeah, Gage is 2 years old, so we got, two small children. And a pet cat named Church. I don't think they say it in the movie, but
Winston Churchill.
yeah, yeah. Did they say it in the movie?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Well, actually, before we jump into the plot of this movie, I'll throw this in there because recently read the book, and there was some really cool stuff from the book in there. But one of the things that I found was interesting was Stephen King's how he got the idea for this story. And he and his family, like, he got offered a teaching job at his college that he went to, and it was just for a year. So him and his family kind of moved in the middle of nowhere out in Maine so he could work at this college. And he the road that ran past his house had these big trucks. And the neighbor, well, the guy across the street, he didn't actually live across the street. He had like a small store, but it's a very similar relationship to what we have in this movie. Like, a majority of this movie is kind of true, except for the Pet Cemetery murder stuff. But basically, yeah, they had a problem with the trucks and stuff coming down the road. There was the issue with his daughter and her pet cat, and her really kind of discovering kind of death, like, when a child first realizes stuff about death with their pet for the first time. All that stuff actually happened. And then the kid, like his small child, like running to the road and almost getting hit by a truck. That did happen, but he was, obviously able to save his kid before that happened. But he wrote this book after, like, during this situation, and then he thought that the book was really kind of, he had went too far, and he had actually put this book away and didn't plan to release it. And his wife eventually found it, read it, really liked it, and convinced him to release it. So,
Was there a real pet cemetery in this town?
I think there was. I don't believe their cat didn't actually. No, their cat did die because there is it's in the book and in the movie where they actually like wrote her real life cat's name on one of the tombstones of the pet cemetery in this movie. And there is something that she says in the movie where she says, if God wants a cat, tell him to get his own cat. This is my cat. And that is actually something his daughter said in real life when her cat got killed. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a pet cemetery.
That's cool. Somewhere out there,
Yeah.
this is a real place.
Yeah. The beginning of the book is actually, like a foreword written by Stephen King, and he actually tells this story. And it's really cool. Look into it because obviously there's way more detail when he tells it. But it was really cool to see that a lot of this was based off of the reality of his life at that time. And, and he just pretty much took a real life situation and then added some horror to it. And you got a good story out of it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
But yeah, so they just moved from Chicago to Ludlow, Maine after Lewis accepts a job offer to be the University of Maine school physician. And while unpacking the car, we meet the across the street neighbor, Judd Crandall, who has lived in Ludlow his whole life. And in the days following the move, Judd and Lewis, they kind of become friends. Like they hang out a lot, they drink beer on the porch together and become kind of buddies. And Judd explains how dangerous the road by their home has become since there's basically a company nearby, and they have 18-wheeler trucks that pretty much just roll through there every hour or so. And Judd is the neighbor that we all need but don't deserve.
Yes,
He's a great addition to the story.
I
I don't
might
think
talk to my neighbors if I had a neighbor like Judd.
Yeah, yeah, he is a really cool dude, and I'll talk about something later on about Judd that's really interesting to the story. But I think that they paint Judd to be this, and Judd is based off of a real person. The guy didn't live across the street in real life, but he's based off of a very much real person. And I love his accent. I wanted to open the show with his accent, but I just couldn't do it.
It's too hard.
Couldn't pull it off.
It's a hard one to do.
Yeah. But so he tells him that the path in Lewis's yard that leads into the woods, it actually takes you to a pet cemetery. And the next day, Judd takes the Creed family on a walk down the path, and he shows them this cemetery. And the cemetery is mostly full of pets from local children that have been killed by the trucks that are speeding down the road. But not all the pets were killed by the trucks. The cemetery is very old, and even Judd's dog, when he was a boy, was buried there. I believe his dog's name is it Spot in the movie? It's Spot in the book.
Not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so after seeing the cemetery, Ellie comes to realize that her pet cat Church will one day die. And this upsets her a lot, and she talks to Lewis about the idea of death. I guess that is one thing that no parent is looking forward to is explaining death to their kid.
And Rachel is not fucking happy about it. You can tell
Yeah,
she's
no.
kind of pissed.
Yeah, she is she's kind of hiding in the kitchen listening. Like you can tell that she's like, she, I think that she doesn't really want Lewis to kind of tell the daughter like anything really about death. Like she kind of wants to just sugarcoat it because I guess she has this idea that maybe she's too young. And I mean, I personally, I agree with Lewis. hey, she's wondering about this thing that is something that everyone goes through and everyone has to deal with. Like, don't bullshit her. Like,
Yeah.
kids can pick up on bullshit. And just tell her what's up right then and there. But
Yeah, she's old enough where she at that age should know, or at least knows somewhat, that death occurs. She kind of gets shitty towards Judd too when they first go in the pet cemetery, because he
yeah,
tells her about it, and
yeah,
she's kind of like,
she was
enough
a
of that shit.
bitch to him.
Yeah, yeah, she's gives off major Karen vibes in the beginning of this
He
movie.
handles it well too,
He
because I mean
does.
he kind of just shrugs it off, but I feel like he just
That's
knows.
just Judd
That's
though.
just
I
Judd.
think he can handle
Oh, it's just Judd.
anything.
He can fucking handle it. But on Lewis's first day at work at the university, a group of frantic students carry in an injured student, and his name is Victor Pascal. And he had been hit by a truck while jogging on campus. And I thought the makeup effect on him was great. I
Yes.
love like half like is his brain is showing, and there's a couple scenes where he's laying on the table and you can see his brain, and there's actually, I don't know how they did it, but there's blood pouring out in like spots. It's, you can literally just see it just kind of pouring down the side of the brain. I thought that was is great. Good job,
Yeah,
makeup team.
that's a bow down to the FX team. I had that in my notes as well. I absolutely loved that shot of him coming in with the blood pouring out.
Yeah, that is there's not a ton of I guess like makeup effects like that in this movie, but
That's a couple spots
the
though.
ones that's in there are good. They did a good job. But yeah, as he lays on the table during the last moments of his life, he warns Lewis about the pet cemetery soil. And later that night, Lewis is woken up by the ghost of Pascal, who leads him to the cemetery and shows him a barrier that he should never cross. Pascal spends so much of his time being dead trying to convince Lewis to, like, don't go here.
I know you think
And
in
Lewis just keeps doing it.
the beginning of the movie, that he's a bad character, because he actually says his name while he's laying there dying, and it freaks Lewis out. So you kind of think like maybe he's this really bad character. It's like his dead ghost spends this whole movie trying to convince them not to fuck up.
Yeah, and he's so him and Judd, like, well, I got a really interesting thing about him. Later on in the show, we'll talk about those two characters, because those two characters are painted a certain way in this movie, and there's something that's said about them that I don't know, I didn't really catch on to, but we'll talk about
But
that in a little bit.
if you look at it, I mean, I love Judd, but if you look at it, Victor's really the good guy here. He's trying to stop them, and Judd is kind of the bad guy here. Like
That's interesting.
he actually, that's one thing I called on to, is he knows the dangers of that, and he takes him there anyway. Why Victor, who you think is the bad guy, spends the whole movie as a ghost, trying to stop them from making this mistake.
But yeah, so during this scene, we learned something interesting about Lewis. Is Lewis apparently wears his doctor uniform to bed? Did you catch that?
I did not.
Yeah, he has like
Speak.
his scrubs on. So
So long
and
hours at the university.
so after I watched this movie, like, I put that in my notes because I thought that was weird. And then later on, when I was researching the movie, I actually found out about that, why that's like that. So originally, the actor who plays Lewis, originally in that scene, he had just a pair of like small shorts on, and they kept having to reshoot it because every time he would like get out of bed, he would look too sexy. They said, like, he was just too attractive, and they were like, he's fucking up the scene.
That's
Like, this is supposed to
hilarious.
be like scary.
What a
And
confidence boost for the guy who played Lewis,
yeah, so
though.
they said they had to put him in clothes. What, and they claim they put him in pajamas, but I've watched this movie twice. He is in doctor doctor uniform,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I thought you were gonna tell me in the original script, like he worked at a hospital or something. I could see if you're a doctor on call at a hospital, maybe
No, he's
putting
too
on some
sexy.
clean scrubs and
He's
going to
he's
bed.
just too sexy in the moonlight.
Yeah, what a nice confidence boost.
Yeah. I guess they were worried all the women were gonna go see Pet Cemetery and just, be like, "Oh God, we gotta leave. We gotta leave here now. Like this scene was too much for me." But Lewis wakes up the next day. He thinks this is a dream, and but then he discovers his feet and ankles are covered in mud. So he really was out there.
I would have been freaked the fuck out because I would have been like, I was sleepwalking out there in the fucking woods, and my
Yeah.
first thought would have been, I could have got hit by one of those semis.
Hmm.
That literally would have been my first thought.
Well, he hides, like he freaks out and he like hides the covers and stuff. And I'm like, I probably would have went downstairs and told my wife, like, you won't believe this shit that happened to me last night.
Yeah,
I don't think that
yeah.
was, it was weird to me that he was trying to be secretive about that, but
I don't know. His wife's kind of a bitch, but I mean, I would go tell Brooke like, you're not gonna fucking believe what happened to
yeah,
me.
that's what I would
Like, not
say.
only did I have this fucking
And
nightmare,
then when she
but
was
I
like, it
woke
was a
up like,
nightmare, and you'd be like, no, look at my legs. Like, it
yeah.
wasn't a nightmare. But so during the Thanksgiving break, Rachel and the kids they fly back to Chicago to visit her parents, and Lewis stays behind at the house because he has a long-standing feud with his father-in-law. Who I don't blame him because his father-in-law sucks.
Been there, done that. I really
I
felt for him
think a
whenever he
lot of people
sends
have
the
been there.
family off for Thanksgiving, and makes that comment like, "Well, apparently I'll never be part of your family according to your dad." I'm like, I feel you, bro.
Yeah, it's probably a lot of husbands and father-in-laws. I feel like that's always a thing, but yeah, so that morning, the first morning they're gone, Judd calls Lewis to tell him that he has found Ellie's cat Church dead in his front yard. And by the looks of it, Church has been hit by one of those big trucks that are driving down the road, hauling ass. And Church is stuck to the ground. I like that scene.
Yeah,
He just peels him off the grass. It looked like he died in the middle of the night because he didn't just die.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. He definitely gets peeled. It's like a band aid,
Yeah.
slowly peeling off a band aid.
Yeah, but realizing that Ellie will be devastated, Judd takes Lewis beyond the pet cemetery, past the barrier, deep into the woods where they eventually end up at a old Indian burial ground. And Judd tells Lewis to bury the cat and not to tell anyone pretty much that they did it. Like, hey, this is a secret between me and you. And Lewis is confused. Judd doesn't tell him shit. Judd is just like, hey man, just just wait and see.
Almost there. Not much further now.
Yeah.
How many times do you hear that from Judd?
Oh, I remember.
I'm like, they're walking, and he keeps saying that. We're almost there now, and then they cut to a scene, and they're on the side of a mountain, and
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like, how
so weird.
fucking far did they go? Like, I would have been like, nah. After 10 minutes of walking, I'm not walking the side of this mountain. Not doing it.
Yeah, so the book has like a ton of information in it, and they filmed a lot of this stuff, but a lot of this stuff got cut out. And one thing, and I hate that they cut so much stuff out because there's a lot of stuff that, like scenes like what you're talking about, would make a lot more sense. So the reason that Judd was just like cruising through there is one of the things they talk about when they first go there for the first time to bury the cat is when you're there on that ground, like you feel amazing. Like your
Mm,
body is like there's nothing wrong with you. And yeah, in the book they actually talk about how Judd to be like in his 70s or whatever was literally beating like Lewis at climbing all this shit. And Judd even tells him later on, he's like, didn't you feel that when we were on the grounds, how amazing that you felt? And he's like, yeah, actually I did. That was the best I ever felt in my life.
that makes a little
Yeah.
more sense. Gives some more insight too
Yeah.
on why Judd took him there.
Yeah, so there's some stuff actually about that too. Uh this movie is the closest adaptation from a Stephen King book there has ever been.
Probably because Stephen King wrote it, I would
Well,
imagine.
there's that, and then there's some other stuff. I got it down, close to the end of the show when we kind of talk about when the movie was made. But this movie is just about dead on, on the book. And but the only problem is there's so much more information in the book about what's going on that is left out of the movie. So if you like the movie, read the book because it fills in a ton of information about what's going on. So highly recommend that. But and I try to put some of that stuff into the episode, but I don't want the whole episode to be the book versus the movie. Um but yeah, so the next day, Lewis is startled by a very much alive church. And you see Lewis gets his shit scared at him.
It
He
does.
like almost falls to the ground, drops whatever he's got or
But
something.
did,
But
did you catch Judd's face when Lewis falls when they're going back to the cemetery to bury the cat?
no.
Like, I swear to God, Fred Gwynn must have, like, legit, like, that. Maybe that wasn't planned. I don't know. But his fucking face when he falls is priceless.
What his face does he make?
He just, like, the typical, like, oh shit face.
Oh.
Like, it is totally like the most oh shit face you could imagine.
Oh, when he falls down the big
Yeah,
like
when
the
Judge just
barrier.
like don't look down, keep still, and yeah,
Uh,
and then he falls.
yeah, right before that too, when Judd goes up the front of the barrier, Judd does it in three
He
steps,
does.
and I was like, dude,
Fred Gwynn's a big dude,
he
though.
is a big
He's
dude.
a big dude, but you can tell he's made this trip quite a few times.
Yeah.
Like this isn't the first time of him going there since his dog went there. He's been there for quite a few
Yeah,
times.
so there's a one story too where a guy actually carried his bull up there. Yeah, he dragged
How
his.
do you look? I
Yeah,
don't. How do you carry a
well, that's what
bull
Lewis
on
says.
a on like flat ground, let alone and through the mountains?
Yeah, so actually, the thing with the burial ground is like 90% of what you bury there when it comes back is not evil. Um, Very rarely does something come back as evil, which is one of the reasons why Judd takes the cat up there, because he's like, well, I'm going to tell you now, I've known a ton of people that's buried their animals up here. They normally just come back kind of like a little slow or something kind of a little wrong with them, but they're normally, because like Judd, when his dog originally comes back, his dog is fine.
Not in the movie.
Yeah, he's like aggressive in the movie, but yeah, he kept that dog for years afterwards. And everything else is normally okay. It's not the same, but it's okay. And the bull is actually like the one animal that came back evil. And I was like, well,
The
that figure.
worst animal to come back evil.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't show that in the movie. In the
Yeah.
movie, like the dog's fucking like all fucked up, like super pissed off.
Yeah. And so that's what
He's
I'm
very
saying.
vague when he explains it too.
That's what I'm saying is like there's so much information that either they didn't get in this movie or it got cut out because the studio cut a lot of stuff out too. And I'm like, well, that makes a lot more sense why Judd would take him up there, because he's like, well, because why would he take him up there if he knew for sure the cat was
Well,
going to be evil?
Well, he says too when he starts blaming himself later on when Gage dies, but he's kind of blaming himself,
Mm-hmm.
and he says that he took the cat up there because he basically felt bad for Ellie. He's like, she didn't deserve to have to face at losing something she loved. So, I mean, yeah, that does shed more light on it though.
But yeah, so Church has wandered back to the house, and he pretty much appears to be fine. He stinks very badly now. His eyes glow kind of a goldish yellow, and he pretty much hates Lewis. And I would say, by the looks of it, the cat is definitely evil. Definitely gives the evil vibe right off the bat. especially with the glowing eyes. So how they actually got the glowing eyes to happen is there was no effects with the glowing eyes. All they did was, you know how cats, they have some kind of reflection in their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
All they did was shine a light at the cat from a certain angle, and that's the cat's natural eyes glowing.
Wow,
That was it.
that's weird because it almost looks like it was digitally put in there
Nope,
after. Hmm, that's
nope,
pretty
that's his
good.
real eyes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
thought that was a real slick kind of way to do that. But yeah, so now when you watch the movie again later on, you if you pay attention, you realize that it's just like a cat that if you were driving and your headlights caught its eyes, it's just the same thing. Yeah, so kind of church pretty much acts like a dick to Lewis the rest of the time. The family is gone. At one point, scratching his face and even dropping a dead rat into the bathtub with Lewis, which
Yeah,
I
poor
would have
Lewis,
fucking
man.
punched that
I would
fucking
have.
cat.
Yeah, I would have been
That's so
fucking
gross.
shitting.
That's so
And
gross.
it's like it's not just like the rat falls in the tub
He
too. It's
throws it.
like blood coming off the rat.
And
Like it's
somehow he
the
like chucks it at him too.
yeah. Yeah, would have been that cat would have been outside. If I end up getting hit again, that cat would be living outside after that.
Yeah. So Lewis goes to talk to Judd about Church's return, and Judd tells him the story about when he was a boy and his pet dog died. And Judd took his remains up to beyond the pet cemetery, and he tells Lewis that the reason that he did it was to spare Ellie the pain of losing her pet at such a young age. And after a few days, Rachel and the kids return, and Ellie continuously complains about Church stinking. I guess he fucking reeks like dead
Like dead.
like
Yeah.
dead.
That's
That
that's a,
works.
that's yeah. That's a bad smell.
Yeah,
Everybody knows anybody
everyone
who's
knows that
ever
smell.
smelled dead knows the dead smell.
Yeah, but the family goes on as normal, never really kind of catching on the idea that anything happened to Church while they were gone. And apparently, no one ever noticed Church has glowing eyes now. I was
Yes,
kind of
that's
wondering about that.
yeah, I thought that was weird too.
Why
Is
does
that
the
not a
cat's
thing?
eyes glow randomly now?
Like well, made me wonder if it was like just Lewis was seeing it and that the rest of the
Yeah,
family members weren't. Because I mean, Cat doesn't seem to hate the rest of the family. It's just like
yeah.
Lewis. Maybe he was trying to give him that rat as
Gift.
like a gift. Like I
Thanks
got
for
this
bringing me
rat for
back,
you, and then
bro.
he got pissed. And after that, Church was like, "All right, fuck you."
He's like, hey man, I really appreciate you bringing me back from the dead. I caught this for you.
It's like,
It's a rat.
can you bring this rat back so I can chase it down and kill it again?
So so right after this, we see that a lady that the Creeds had hired to help around the house decides to commit suicide. And she leaves a brief note and hangs herself in the basement of her home. And at her funeral, we get a cameo by Stephen King himself. It's always weird for me to see like a young Stephen King.
Yeah,
Because my whole life, Stephen King's been, well, I wouldn't say my whole life because I was a baby.
your whole adult
My
life
whole
of
adult,
knowing
he's
who
been old.
Stephen King is. Yes, he's very old. Did you read the Suicide Note?
I remember it being like something about her stomach pain. She couldn't take the pain anymore.
Yeah, I had to pause it and go back. It's yeah, she had some type of stomach cancer, obviously.
Yeah, they talk. Well, she, the couple scenes that she's in, like she's
She's
complaining
talking
about
about her
it.
stomach
Yeah.
hurting, yeah, because he even Lewis offers to like check it out for her, and she's like, "Oh no," she's got the Judd accent down,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, it's clearly they don't say it's stomach cancer, but more than likely some type of stomach cancer.
Yeah, she's like the only character that's not in the original story at all. And I really wasn't quite sure why they had her whole entire part in the movie. I don't really understand, really why they wrote that in. It doesn't really do anything.
Will they talk to Ellie about death again after that? Because he has to. I remember they have Lewis and Ellie have a conversation about death again after that after the funeral, That's the only reason I could think of them adding
Yeah,
that in
yeah.
there.
So,
Because Ellie's really upset. And
yeah,
she asked if what happened to her.
the original story is actually Judd's wife that dies, and I don't know why they made that change because that seemed like that went it went better than this random lady.
Whenever I was younger and I seen this movie, I thought it was Judd's wife.
Yeah, they get real close to Judd and his wife, and his wife dies from I think she dies from a heart attack or something. And this is what brings all this stuff up with Ellie. But yeah, this causes Ellie to ask questions about death, and this is pretty much we learn that Rachel has some kind of deep seated issue when it comes to the subject of death. Kind of explains her look from earlier. And her and Lewis talk about it, and Rachel tells the story of her sister Zelda. And when they were kids, Zelda had spinal meningitis, which causes her to become very sick and very scary looking.
A fucking monster.
Her back and her arms begin to twist in very unnerving, unnatural ways. Rachel hated her sister and was kind of wanting her to die. And one day, Rachel was kind of put in charge of watching her for a few hours. And during this time, her sister passes away. And pretty much this event emotionally scars Rachel for life. And my whole entire life, I've always thought that Zelda is the scariest part of this movie for me. Like,
I'm gonna say the second
she
scariest part for
scared
me.
me when I was a kid.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the second scariest part.
Oh,
Um, at least mentally. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I would. If I hate to say this, but if I had a sibling and I was stuck in the house with that, because she's a little kid, like
yeah.
her sister's clearly much older than her. Probably look like she was probably an adult when she's dying. But
Well,
God, man,
no, she's only like 2 years older. So
well,
the reason that she looks like that in the movie
that spinal
is
meningitis is some fucked up
well,
shit, man.
here's what happened. So they originally were casting little girls to play the part, and they couldn't get the little girls to quit being cute and you having sympathy for this character.
Yeah,
So they casted a grown man to
that was a
play.
man.
That
I
was a
didn't know that was a
man. Yeah.
man. Thought it was a grown woman. Good
Yeah.
God.
I can't remember the actor's name. So they picked a
You,
man because they thought a man would be scarier.
it
And they
was fucking
wanted you to
scary.
be as scared as Rachel was when she was a kid.
Bro, if I was 8 years old and I was stuck in the fucking house with this, I would be terrified. And
Yeah.
Lewis is right. Like, he tells her, like, if I ever had needed another reason to dislike your fucking parents even more, this is it. Like, why would they think leaving an 8-year-old in charge of taking care of their sister with spinal meningitis was a good idea? I'm like, yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
That's
A little bit of backstory too about Zelda is Zelda actually resented Rachel for being healthy. And Rachel and her mother were the primary caregivers for Zelda. And Zelda started doing things to make their life miserable. Like she would pee on her, like they would try to take her to the bathroom and she wouldn't go. And then they would put her back in bed and she would immediately piss the bed. So they had to change her and clean everything up. Like she started doing all of these things just to spite them. And that's why Rachel actually wanted her to die.
well, I don't blame Rachel. I hate to say that. That's a horrible thing, but 8 years old, that's a horrible thing to have to go through, and it makes a lot more sense of why she has such a weird thing with death and talking about it with her daughter.
Yeah. So yeah, when Zelda dies, Rachel actually runs out of the house to the neighbors and she's like screaming that, Zelda is dead. And the neighbors are like, oh, she's upset. But she's like, I
Yeah,
was actually happy.
she says she's
Yeah.
crying, and they think like she's upset, but in reality,
Yeah.
she was happy.
Yeah. So the next day, we see the Creed family and Judd. They're having kind of a picnic in the yard. Lewis and Gage are flying a kite, And Lewis kind of turns around. He's talking to Rachel and Judd. And Gage drops the kite string and begins kind of running after it and in the direction towards the road. And at the same time, we see a fast moving semi truck kind of heading down the same road. Lewis starts sprinting after Gage, trying to catch him before he makes it into the road, but he doesn't make it. And we see the truck coming right at Gage, and then a bloody child's shoe tumbling down the street. And the shot of the shoe is fucked up. Like that's like one of the most fucked up parts of this movie.
This is the scariest scene for me, at least
Yeah,
mentally,
yeah.
and
As an
it's
adult, thinking about the reality of the situation is scariest, but
yeah, being a parent and going back and watching this, like I've seen this fucking movie many a times before I was a parent, and seeing it now, even though I know he's gonna get hit by a truck, like it's the main part of the story, it's still like, oh god, no, don't get hit by the truck.
yeah, I remember, watching this story many times, throughout my life and not really thinking anything really about the story. It's just another horror movie story. But as a much older adult, when I watch this movie now, I understand why Stephen King was like, I've went too far. I'm going to probably put this story to the side because even with with it, Georgie gets killed. He's killed by this monster that we know is not real. But this is a situation where this shit happens
This
to people.
happens, yeah.
Yeah. This
Somebody out there right now is going through this shit.
yeah.
It's as a parent, like that scene absolutely just gave me such bad anxiety. And I really like Lewis, but of course he fucking falls down like right before he gets there in the lamest way possible. It's a horrible scene.
Yeah, I hate this whole entire part of the movie because even after you get past the like bloody shoe, then they dig in deeper where they're like showing like their moments with this kid. And I'm like, why the fuck would you put this in this movie?
And then they show him going through the pictures and shit afterwards, and I'm like, there's no way I could be sitting there going through those pictures right after this. Like, I don't know how I would even go on after that, but like he's sitting there not crying, like looking through the pictures of his kid, and I'm like, no, no fucking way.
Yeah, this is this is a fucked up part of the movie. I could watch this movie, the rest of my life and just edit just that part out of it. I already know it happens. Don't need to see it again, but yeah, that's a fucked up part of this movie. So then we see scenes of Lewis, Rachel, and Ellie trying to kind of deal with the death of Gage. And they have a visitation and a funeral for him. And Judd anticipates that Lewis may be considering burying his son beyond the pet cemetery where they put the cat. And he's I guess he is worried he's going to try to bring him back to life. And Lewis denies this, but Judd doesn't really believe him, which I don't. I definitely wouldn't believe him either. Every parent, I think, if that was a possibility, would consider that. But yeah, he sits down and he tells him the story about a local man named Bill Abaterman who buried his young son Timmy in this Indian burial ground after he died at the end of World War II. And Timmy returned as a very violent zombie, I
It's
guess is
just
the
a
best way to
zombie.
put
Yeah,
it.
that's what I put in there.
Yeah.
Timmy the zombie.
Yeah. So he pretty much went around terrifying the townspeople until ultimately a group of local men, including Judd, went to kill Timmy for good. And they set the Baderman house on fire while Timmy murdered his father, Bill. Now, I want to throw this in there because I thought this was okay, but I thought the original version was cool. So Timmy originally doesn't come back as this like violent zombie. He comes back kind of like mentally ill. And the town people are like they all went to his funeral and they're like but they all know about the burial ground. And they're just like, this is weird, this is unnerving. But what happens is people start writing the government And the US Army is pissed that this guy is alive. They're like, well, if he didn't die in this war, then who did we bury and who did we give this Purple Heart to? Basically, and they paid out a life insurance to his dad. And people from the town wrote, "Hey, just letting this Timmy Baterman that you buried with full honors and paid out life insurance is actually alive."
Snitching ass
Yeah.
neighbors, man.
So basically, yeah, so the military like sends a guy from the Department of Defense, and he's pretty much like tells like the town like police officer like, listen, if I keep hearing about this, then I'm going to show up and do an investigation, and this is going to be a big deal. And so they go and talk to Timmy's dad, who brought him back to life, and he basically says, fuck off. Like, I don't really care what the government says. Like, yeah, I brought him back to life, and yeah, he's a little messed up, but he's still my son.
That would be me as a parent. I'd be like,
And well,
fuck the government.
yeah, and so Judd and his group of friends try to talk him into like, look, this is unnatural, this is wrong, like he's kind of freaking people out, he's doing weird stuff, and what ends up happening is the dad actually ends up shooting Timmy and then himself, and sets the house on fire. And I thought that was a cooler story. I like that a little bit better.
That makes sense because he's telling the story and it makes it sound like Timmy the zombie just terrorized the town for like a fucking week. And I'm like, hey, how did he run around here for days?
Yeah, so the reason that the townspeople wanted to get rid of him is because he possessed this knowledge that of everyone's secrets, and was like kind of fucking with people pretty much. He was like, there was one guy, he was like, your wife's like fucking that dude that works at the supermarket.
Damn, that's so Stephen King. That is such a Stephen King, like not the fucking the guy at the supermarket part, but like, I could totally see in the longer version in the book, that's a total like this guy comes back to life and he knows like all these people's like dark secrets and starts fucking with them. That's totally Stephen King.
Well, the whole point of it is there's this evil that is controlling these people. It's the people didn't come back to life themselves.
It's not them.
This an evil is in their body, and I just thought that was such a cooler story with the Timmy. The dad eventually ends up murdering Timmy because he is getting worse. Like the things he is doing is getting worse and worse. Like I can't exactly remember exactly what he was doing, but eventually it got to the point where the dad just couldn't keep his son under control anymore, and he had realized like this is out of hand.
That's why the books are always so much better. Because that whole part's, I don't know, take up 15 minutes of a movie, whereas the books, I mean, with a movie you only have 2 hours max.
I mean, they covered this in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, this is like a whole chapter in the book, I'm sure.
Yeah, I just really loved the fact that the townspeople let it go on for a while because they'd felt bad. And what really brought the hammer down was the federal government was like, what is going on here? And then, the son is actually getting where he's not going around like eating people's arms or anything.
The government's like, if we paid out this life insurance money, we're going to make sure this motherfucker's dead.
Yeah, they mentioned that to Bill Baterman, and he's like, well, like they can have their fucking money back. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, I know. As a parent, I would 100% be like, why does the government give a fuck if my son's back? Like, they had to take your money.
Yeah. But Judd insists that the burial grounds are evil, and he pleads with Lewis not to take Gage up there. And he tells him, pretty much the tagline of the movie, that sometimes dead is better. And Lewis talks to Rachel and Ellie. He talks them into going back to Chicago after the funeral, and that he will join them in a few days. And he's pretty much ignores Judd and Pascal's warnings. Lewis goes and digs up his son's body and buries him in the ritual site.
I feel so there's the scene where he's about to dig his son up and he's like reasoning with himself of why he's gonna do it. Like
Mm-hmm.
the family will be out of town, nobody will ever know. If it goes bad, I'll just put him down again. And as a parent, like I 100% agreed with everything he was saying. Like watching this movie as a kid, I was like, this is clearly a bad fucking idea. But now, like as a parent, like your toddler gets hit by a truck in front of you and you find out there's a way that you could bring them back to life. And he's sitting there reasoning with himself, I think is all actual thoughts that parents would have in this situation.
Yeah, you can tell too that his mind is broken
Yeah,
from.
the grief has
And
fucked him
yeah,
up.
and you don't really understand that when you're younger because you've never really been through a situation where your mind is, temporarily broken. But seeing this situation as an adult, you can very much see Lewis's point of view during all this. It changes the way that you watch this movie.
Yeah, it's much different.
But yeah, so while in Chicago, Pascal starts to appear in Ellie's dreams, warning her that Lewis is in trouble. And she pretty much tells this to Rachel, who calls Judd to check in on Lewis. And he tells her that he hasn't seen Lewis and he's not home.
I like this because this is actually something that she's having these dreams the whole movie. And this is where we find out Victor is the one actually in her dreams. These bad dreams she keeps having. And
Mm-hmm.
it's him trying to prevent this from happening. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, there's something real cool about this stuff too, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But yeah, so unnerved by this news, she decides to fly home as quick as possible. And so that night, a reanimated Gage returns to the house and takes a scalpel out of Lewis's medical bag while Lewis is pretty much exhausted and sleeping on the bed. And I will say, Gage is in really good shape for being hit by a semi truck.
Yeah.
He has what, pretty much like a scar on his forehead. That's it.
I don't know that foot took the brunt of it. That
Oh,
shoe.
I guess.
Yeah, that's where it came
Yeah.
from.
Also, how does the like ritual cemetery work if you've been embalmed?
I guess it doesn't matter
Uh,
because it's evil taking your body over. I'm sure they embalmed him.
It's just weird though that like
Maybe
he
that's why it
doesn't
looks so
have
good. Maybe it's just a really good funeral home.
the
Like they
best.
just sewed him back together and made
Yeah.
him look real good. They're
Uh,
like his face is pretty much undamaged.
uh,
We can glue the rest back.
yeah, I guess the fact that he has no organs inside of his,
He's a
you know,
kid. He can take that shit. It's just
they
just a
bounce back.
semi.
They heal up quick. But so he sneaks over to Judd's house and kind of taunts him with some creepy evil child laughter and tiny muddy footprints. These are very simple but effective things to do when you're a child and you're going to murder an adult.
This is
All
like
very creepy.
Chucky vibes too, with the little
Oh yeah.
footprints running
Oh,
around.
that's immediately what I thought about. Was I'm like, they did that same thing in Chucky with, because there's a scene where somebody spills like some flour or something, child's play, and you see his little footprints through it, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, if you have a tiny killer, you have to have the tiny footprints. You have to.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't make a tiny killer movie without tiny footprints.
One of the few like really scary things you can do with a tiny killer.
I think Chucky does some evil laughter too. It's just not child laughter, but same
Yeah.
thing. That's also a big thing in, like, when you go to haunted houses during Halloween, there's always some evil laughter going on in the background.
Yeah. Something with ghosts and kids laughing, and
Yeah.
it's just creepy.
So Gage hides under Judd's bed, and Judd's kind of looking for him, and he slices the back of his
So
foot.
it's his
The
Achilles. He
Achilles
cuts his
tendon.
fucking
He
Achilles in
goes
half.
down.
Another shout out to the FX
Yeah, it looked
team.
good
Yeah, it
too.
did look good.
Once he kind of falls down, he kind of slashes Judd's face, like he cuts like the corners of his, like he gives him like the Joker
He
almost.
does. He's and that was done really good too.
Mhm. Yeah, it's real quick. It's real
Yeah,
fast.
yeah. This was some good. There's not a whole lot, but the effects that they do have is really good for 1989.
Yeah, so once Judd is down on the floor, Gage bites out his neck. And I was like, no, not Judd.
Yeah, yeah. This was a hard one.
Yeah,
You like Judd so much.
he was wanting to survive.
Even if all of this is his fault, he's still he's still the best character.
Oh, he's great.
And to
I forgive you,
see
Judd. I forgive
little
you.
savage Gage rip his throat out with his teeth, it was a rough one.
Yeah, so what the fuck is Gage wearing? Like, he's wearing like this
So
dress and top
so
hat.
yeah, I actually put that in
His
my
little
notes.
cane.
So he doesn't do that when he kills them, but
When Rachel
when
shows
Rachel
up,
shows
yeah.
up, he's like she sees her fucked up sister Zelda for a second. This really creepy scene of her ducked down in the corner, and she starts like talking shit to her and coming towards her, and then it like flashes, and it's no longer Zelda, it's Gage, and he's wearing a fucking dress and top hat. Thought that
So
was really weird.
it is weird, and I looked into it. And here's the deal. So there is that portrait that you see Rachel standing in front of a couple times when she's in Chicago. And that portrait is a portrait of Zelda when she was about Gage's age. And she is wearing that exact same outfit. That is the same outfit that they also buried Zelda in. And for some reason, it's like a family tradition to bury your dead child in that outfit. Because that is why when you see Zelda appear right before she turns into Gage, if you notice, she's wearing that minus the top hat. She's wearing that same kind of dress thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I noticed she was wearing it, but I didn't know any of the family history of it, or
Yeah.
and I didn't catch that picture
Yeah, I didn't either,
because
and
I
I
was
just
totally
happened.
like,
I read. I came across. I read about it, and yeah. So that is, and the reason that they did that is because they want people to see kind of like the similarities that Rachel was scared of Zelda, and then her child ends up having a similar fate, and that's why they dressed them the same. Is because um, she was happy. It's almost like she's being punished for being happy Zelda's dead by her child dying. So, yeah, that they're basically trying to make a you know like a visual kind
well,
of thing of these two things are running together. They're surrounding Rachel.
yeah, that makes a little more sense because I was definitely like,
I didn't get it
what the
either,
fuck did they put Gage in this dress
especially
for?
the top hat and the cane.
Yeah,
Like, I get
the
why he needs a cane now. It was an accident. But yeah, so Pascal, he's helping Rachel return home, and once she arrives, she goes straight over to Judd's house after seeing the ghost, I guess she hears her son and Zelda. She hears them over at Judd's, and she kind of heads over there. And once she's inside, she realizes that she is looking at her. Originally, she's looking at Zelda, but this is what we are just talking about, and it kind of transforms into her once dead and now very much alive son Gage. And he is holding a scalpel. She is in shock and disbelief. She reaches down to hug him, and he kills her.
it
We don't
does.
see the
We don't get
kill.
to see
We
it.
don't get to see the kill, but
It would have been my
very
favorite
obvious.
kill if they would have showed it.
Yeah. So in the morning, Lewis wakes up and he sees small footprints of the killer. And in the house, he discovers that his scalpel is missing. And this is pretty much when Lewis realizes, fuck, my kid came back evil. Damn, Judd was right.
Yeah,
Came
he's
back evil.
excited at first.
Yeah.
Like he gets all excited, starts yelling for Gage, and then he's like, "Oh, my
Scalpel's
scalpel,
gone. He's probably not going to do surgery.
perfect murder weapon."
But so the phone rings and it's Gage on the other end informing Lewis that he has played with Judd and Mommy And Lewis pretty much realizes his son is evil and fills up 3 syringes with some morphine. And he heads on over to Judd's house, take care of business. He's gonna try to fix his very, very big mistake.
It's fucked up. He gets a call from his father-in-law right before that too, and it's saying Ellie's having this dream that Rachel died. So he kind of is like already like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like this couldn't
Yeah,
get any worse.
He knows, like,
Yeah, they find
damn.
out she came back, she's not there, and then that the kid's now having a dream, and everything she's dreamed is end up happening.
So yeah, he catches Church first, kind of out front.
Church dies again.
He injects him with the morphine, kind of kills him, and pretty much gives you a "fuck you, evil cat."
Is it
Kinda.
morphine?
It is morphine.
Oh, did they say that in the movie or is that in the book?
Yeah.
I don't think they say it in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a good way to die.
It was in the plot of the movie.
If you're gonna
Where I
inject me
got
with
that from.
something to kill me, just I would. I mean,
That's what
I'd rather it be morphine.
IMDb claims it's morphine. So anyway, yeah, he pretty much kills the evil cat. It's a Thanksgiving for cats that came back alive. They actually said one of the hardest parts of filming this movie was trying to get that cat to eat that pork chop.
Well, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I don't think cats really like
I
that kind of stuff. Like tuna.
yeah.
Oh God, like the cat here, like, will fight you over a fucking tuna.
Yeah, my cat loves tuna, but as far as like table food, they are not like a dog. They don't go after food like that.
Yeah. So then he heads inside and he's looking for Gage. And first he finds Judd's body with the lower part of his face missing. So Gage has had a little more fun with Judd, apparently.
I do love how
off.
the fucking house is like rotted and fucked up.
No.
And it's not actually. It just goes to show you how this like
this evil is
like fucking with him
Yeah.
super hard, and he's like lost his mind.
So then, as he is walking through the hallway, Rachel's body drops from the attic. Gage is kind of up there with where the body was. This stuns and shocks Lewis, who is then attacked by Gage. And we see a fight between Lewis and obvious doll.
This is the only part I can say I fucking hated in this entire movie. The
fight with the doll.
The fakest dive, the throwing the doll out of the attic, like the dive onto him was so fake looking. And then him fighting with this toddler, and it's like slamming him up against the wall. It's total leprechaun vibes.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you just throw this little fucking bastard? Just toss him.
It's a bit much. They try to mix some. They do a good job. They mix some scenes of like the actual Gage's face in this kind of fight, but he's pretty much like cutting Lewis up with the scalpel. But there's a couple scenes where it just looks like Lewis is holding this doll and just slamming himself around the hallway.
Yeah. And the worst part was the dive out of the attic for me because it was really bad looking. But I mean, even without it looking fake, I mean, he's like a 2-year-old.
I feel like I would have beat the fuck out of a 2-year-old.
I mean, it's your kid, so maybe not beat the fuck out of it. But
It's
if an evil 2-year-old jumps on me, like I'm gonna throw it halfway across the room.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that's gonna. How is it slamming you up against the fucking wall?
The power of evil.
That is some powerful evil.
You should have. The power of Christ compels you. That's what you should have did. Maybe a crucifix would have worked in this moment.
Turn it into an Exorcist movie.
If Gage started like doing that backwards crawl thing.
It's the Stephen King, the Reverend, comes in with the crucifix.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would have been great. So after a brief fight, Lewis overpowers Gage and injects him with the morphine. Gage gets upset. He kind of stumbles away from Lewis and he falls down. And he dies.
It's kind of sad.
It is sad. It's a really kind of sad death. Because he's still like a kid.
He is.
Like a little baby.
You can tell, despite all the evil, like it still kills Lewis
Oh
to
yeah.
actually do it. And then, like, as he's dying, he kind of, it's like the evil dies out of him first because he kind of resorts back into being a toddler and just is kind of sad and just stumbles away and falls up against the wall.
Yeah, it's a bummer. It's, it sucks. It's like, yay, you killed the evil, but it's still a little kid, and he still talks like a little kid, and even says like, you're not fighting fair, and uh, yeah, it's a sad
Yeah,
scene.
he's like stumbling away and he's like, not fair, not
Yeah, he
fair.
has to, it sucks too because Lewis has to watch his kid die twice.
Mm-hmm.
That sucks. So Lewis then kind of pours gas throughout Judd's house, and he sets it on fire. He cuts Rachel down, and walks out of there with the house pretty much being engulfed in flames. He carries Rachel towards the pet cemetery, believing that Gage became evil because he just waited too long to bring him back, and that Rachel will be a different outcome because she just died. And Pascal appears in the road and he tries to stop Lewis, but he doesn't really give a fuck about what Pascal has to say.
Yeah, this is sad. Even after all this, like you can tell how him being grief stricken has
Yeah,
literally caused him to lose his mind.
he
Like
is totally broken at this
he's
point.
lost everybody at this point. Like he's desperate to bring just his wife
Something.
back at least. He obviously can't bring Gage back 'cause he's been dead twice now. Um, but yeah, you would think after all this, like, no, you would never go near that place again. But he's clearly so grief stricken. He's gonna try it again.
Yeah, I mean, the cat came back evil. The kid came back evil, but the wife will be fine. So that night, Rachel returns home to Lewis, who has been waiting for her, and she's very gross looking. She is missing an eye. Lewis stands up, and they begin to passionately kiss each other. And Rachel takes a large knife from the table, and we hear Lewis scream. And all I can say is, poor Ellie.
God, they start like intensely tongue
And
kissing, and
there's
her
that
fucking she's missing
ooze
an eye,
is
and it's like
pouring from her
oozing
eye.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ugh.
he's clearly lost his fucking mind.
Oh, God. She is
Um,
gross.
but I'll say I fucking love the ending of this movie. It's one of I hate when movies have super unrealistic happy endings.
Mm.
And this is one of those more cryptic, dreadful endings. He could have ended it after like him setting the house on fire when everybody was dead, and they just ended it with him and his daughter. Which people forget he still has a
Mm.
daughter who's now left on her own, but him being so crazy and putting her back in the cemetery and then it kind of fading out, like we don't see him actually die, but kind of fades out. I thought the ending was fantastic.
Yeah, so the original ending for the movie is actually it stopped when Rachel she puts her hand on the door and like goes to open the door. That's where the original movie stops. They originally stopped it because they kind of wanted the end to be left up to you. But the studio actually made them go back and reshoot that whole like make out scene and stab with the knife. So yeah, that whole thing was reshot because I guess they thought, you were so close to being just show it, just show her looking gross and creepy, show them making out. Lewis has lost his mind, and then because I guess they wanted to make you wonder, like, does she come back evil or does she not? And uh, it's pretty obvious that she probably comes back evil because everything has come back evil.
Yeah, yeah, I loved the ending. I thought it was fantastic. The everybody dies ending is I'm always a fan of. Although I really liked Lewis, I thought it was a great ending.
Yeah, so we'll move into some interesting things I learned about the movie. In the first one, I got a big one. Got a big one for the first one. Some of this stuff is really awesome, so I really wanted to include a bunch of it. But originally, the film rights were sold to George A. Romero.
Hmm.
He bought them from Stephen King in 1984 for $10,000. King declined many, many other offers for the film adaptation for this. But Ramiro had to eventually pull out of the film because by the time they decided to make the movie, he was already busy on a production of another movie. Stephen King had turned down all the other offers because he didn't really want to make a film adaptation of this. And then when George A. Romero came, he was like, well, if I'm going to let anybody do it, it's going to be George A. Romero. We almost had a George A. Romero Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
Holy fucking shit.
Wonder
That's a
how
big
that would
one.
have came out.
That's a big one. Yeah.
But we would have seen the kills.
Yeah. And so, since we're kind of talking about the director, so Stephen King was originally opposed to any other directors doing the film until he met Mary Lambert. Mary Lambert was picked by the studio, and so he met her, and she talked about how much she loved all his books and how she did not want to stray from the source material, which King, he loved her after that because he didn't want to. A lot of his other movies, they kind of go off and do other stuff from his books, and she wanted to stay very close to his book, which he liked.
Yeah, you know how many movies Stephen King has probably had to watch that were written from his books that
Yeah,
they just completely fuck it up
I think he
or
dislikes
completely
most of them.
change everything about it.
Yeah, this movie too, he actually had the most to do with. I think he was kind of tired of them kind of chopping up his stories. So this one, he actually had made it part of the contract when he sold the rights that he was going to write the actual like screenplay, and he was going to have say so in where it was filmed. Where they filmed this movie was only 20 minutes from his home.
Hmm.
So yeah, he didn't have to travel far to the set every
That's
day.
probably close to where the place where he that kind of inspired it too.
Yeah,
You said he
maybe.
went back to teach
Yeah.
at his old school, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
What's interesting is so that house is still there. And you can go and see that house, Lewis's house. Judd's house is it was a smaller house, and they actually built that house around the smaller house. That is just a fake house. It's like a shell. Um, and then they kind of lined it with something. So there's some kind of lining in between the actual house and then the fake Judd house. That way, that when they burn Judd's house down, they would be able to actually set it on fire, and it wouldn't actually catch the real house on fire.
yeah, that's slick.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So what took the studio so long to make this movie was they believed that there was no more demand for Stephen King movies.
Wow, they
Yeah,
fucked that up.
yeah,
Here
pretty
we
much.
are in 2023, and there's still a demand for Stephen King movies.
Yeah, so it wasn't until the 1988 Guild of America strike that the studio needed to use an already written script in order to avoid facing a possible shortage of new productions in the year of 1989. So because they didn't have any writers writing anything in 88, they were like, we've got to do something. We got to get something that's already written and already approved, or we're not going to have any movies for 1989. And this is the only reason that Pet Sematary was made.
Isn't it crazy how you can get all these like studio execs that are supposed to be like experts in this stuff, and then
Don't
a
know
room
shit.
full of them can be so fucking wrong about
Yeah.
something? Like, I mean, how many times has that happened? That's happened. That happens
Yeah,
all the
I feel like
time. It's like,
it's untelling other movies we could have had if they wouldn't have fucked it up. There's probably stuff we don't know.
oh, I'm sure there's shit tons of stuff we don't know. And then, like, going back and hearing about a movie 20 years later, and you hear about some of the stuff and some studio execs, like a room full of rich people who are supposed to be the best in the world at making these decisions can manage to fuck something up.
They're just out of. I think a lot of them are
Stephen
just out of
King's out.
touch. He's old
He's done.
news.
Old
No
news.
one will even know who he is in 20 years
Yeah,
unless you read books.
wait until the 2000s. Nobody's gonna give a fuck. But Stephen who?
Yeah. So it was director Mary Lambert who fought the studio on the casting of Fred Gwynne for Judd. The studio believed that people would not take him serious because of his fame as Herman Munster.
Well,
Another thing they were wrong about.
they were very wrong about that.
Yeah,
To ever disrespect Herman Munster or Fred Gwynne.
so when she signed on for the movie, Fred Gwynne was her only choice for Judd.
This
She
is probably
never wanted anybody else to play
I
him.
wonder if this was done before or after My Cousin Vinny.
I think this is before, because I think My Cousin Vinny, I don't know, could have been around the same time.
I mean,
I think My Cousin Vinny might have been like 1990.
the Munsters only ran for 2 seasons, and that was the late 60s. So
Yeah.
this is nearly 10 years later. And unless you, I mean, I guess there was probably a lot of fans of the Munsters back then. But I mean, it's just not like super recognizable. He has so much makeup when he does the Munsters, but they were very wrong.
Yeah.
Very wrong about that.
Yeah, when I think of him, I don't think of the Monsters because I don't watch the Monsters, but I think of Pet Sematary.
He did so good in that role that when I watched the remake, he is the only role that's like, it's just, the movie could never be as good because Judd is not Judd.
Yeah, I agree. It's really difficult to replace him because he was so good in that role.
I mean, he's this iconic, like that voice and the accent and the look. Like it's just it's whenever I was younger, and I would think back at watching the Pet Sematary, he is the first person that I would think of him talking in that accent. So, like I said, even the remake, it's just he's the one character that just can't be replaced.
Yeah, I got another big one for you. Bruce Campbell was the first choice for the role of Louis Creed. Can you imagine if we would have had a George A. Romero director and Bruce Campbell in Pet Sematary?
Yeah,
It's so weird.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't do that. Not the Romero, obviously, but having Ash as Louis Creed.
He would have like chainsawed Gage.
Yeah.
That's still that would have been, that would have been crazy though. I mean, just thinking those two things that almost happened. This would be, I don't know. I mean, it would still be the movie that it is, but it would. I don't think people would look at it differently.
Yeah, you gotta imagine if Romero did it, it would be. We would actually see the deaths. There would be a lot more, probably, death and gore in it, because this movie doesn't have a whole lot of those. They do a good job at sprinkling in these creepy parts, but it really doesn't have a whole lot of FX moments or gore or anything. The ones it does have is great, but it's just not a whole lot. They don't show the deaths except Judd.
It's very reliant on the story.
Yes.
Not so much on really.
Unfortunately, it was a fantastic
great story though.
Yeah, fantastic story, which holds the movie up for sure.
Yeah, so because cats are very difficult to train, which I didn't know that till this, they ended up using 9 different cats for the role of Church. They had one for jumping, one for snarling, and one for cuddling, just to name a few of the cats.
I could see that. Cats are fucking hard.
So apparently, for each different thing that Church does in the movie, they had to get a different cat that was specifically trained to do that one thing.
Huh.
Yeah.
Somebody had to go out and find a bunch of gray cats. They were like, we need this exact shade of gray. Just get as many as you can. And if you pull 20, we'll be able to get at least one of them to do what we need.
Yeah, so the studio thought the original cut of the movie was way too long, so they actually had a lot of scenes cut out, and in which I think is a huge mistake. But in 2020, director Mary Lambert stated that the reason that the deleted scenes are not on the Blu-ray or DVD is because the studio had destroyed all of the, or no, they had lost all of the extra footage. They
Yeah.
probably destroyed it. They do that.
Yeah, I'm sure that was another super smart studio exec. Was like, oh, just fucking burn all that footage. Nobody will ever want to see that shit.
You know that they had a lot more detail through this movie. I would have loved to have seen a director's cut of this movie, especially after reading the book, because
Especially after Stephen King writing the screenplay for it. I'm sure it, because there's stuff in there that he doesn't want to leave out, because then it makes certain things not make that much sense, like Judd running through the woods to get there, although he's like 70 years old. Like, that didn't really make sense to me until you told me. In the book, it kind of makes them feel really good. It's like they're drugged up when they get up there. So I'm sure there was a lot of stuff, detail stuff that got cut out that he made sure was in there.
yeah, after reading the book, and then this is the first time I'd watched a movie since I'd read it. This it made the movie feel like it just jumped from point to point really quickly. And I get that it can't have as much detail as the book, but I feel like from what I understand from statements from the director that they did try to put that stuff in so it didn't seem like it was, because when you watch it without knowing all this stuff, it there are a ton of spots that you just like whatever, it's just part of the movie, but it would definitely add to the movie if they included a lot of that stuff. Like they could have mentioned how you feel really good when you're on that like ritual land. Like all of a sudden you're like in great shape and you have no problem. Like, I'm sure they probably filmed a 30-second scene with them saying that, but the studio had to edit it out. But
Yeah, it sucks. But I mean, you take a long book and try to get it down into 2 hours. It's probably really tough.
yeah.
It's probably, even for Stephen King, just figuring out for the screenplay. Not to mention all the stuff that got cut after they filmed it. I feel like you could do a 10-part series and still miss details. Not as much, but you did, like, Stephen King's, what is it, 11/23/59 or something?
No, 11/22/63.
63. Okay, yeah. So they did that in a 10-part series, and I loved that book,
Yeah,
and I thought they did a great job.
but there's still a lot
But there was
missing.
still a lot of
Hmm.
detail stuff missing, and it's hard.
That's a long book, though.
That is a long
That's a
book.
big book.
That book got me through some tough times. We'll just put it like that.
So the truck, and this is hard to see. I actually caught when you were finishing up. I actually went in there and was like looked for this. It's hard to see though. The truck that Rachel hitches a ride with towards the end of the movie is numbered 666.
Hmm.
It is. So when she gets out of the truck, it's right there on the bottom of the door. It's 3 6s in white. But yeah,
Yeah.
the truck number 666.
Didn't catch that.
I didn't
I thought
either.
she was getting in the truck, the same truck that hit her son. I was like, how
Well,
did I
that would be
never
weird.
notice that? But because you don't hardly get to see the guy who's driving. Like, you see him like make some comment like, "Oh yeah, get in," or I don't know. He says it in a creepy way, but that would have been awkward. That'd been an awkward ride.
So another crazy ass thing. Tom Savini turned down the offer to direct this movie.
Hmm.
They tried to get some
They
heavy
tried. Yeah,
hitters, didn't they?
they did.
I give him.
Especially in that time, like
Yeah,
those were the heavy hitters.
yeah, yeah. That's another thing is if we would have had Tom Savini directing Pet Sematary, like holy shit. That's what I was saying earlier. Is I was kind of excited for some of this stuff because this is a movie that I think a lot of people kind of grew up with, and there's so much stuff that kind of goes along with the making of this movie that I don't think hardly anybody knows. I'd never heard any of this stuff.
Yeah, and like you think Savini or Romero, like this movie does not feel like either one of those two types. So it makes you wonder what kind of movie we would have gotten,
Yeah.
because we know the story would have been the same
Mm-hmm.
because Stephen King himself wrote the screenplay. But how much different would the cinematography and the gore and stuff, like, I feel like it would make it a completely different feel of a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe in alternate universes, there's a one where Tom Savini did Pet Sematary and one where George A. Romero does Pet Sematary. And I mean, it's just crazy. But that didn't happen. Mary Lambert did a good job, though. I mean,
No, she
I
did.
think
It's a
she did
great
a great
movie.
job.
Yeah, no, I agree.
They could have ended up with somebody that totally fucked this whole thing up. But so speaking of Mary Lambert, she kind of talked about um, Pascal being kind of the good ghost, like the good angel, is what she says, and Judd is actually the bad.
Ah,
Yeah,
so I did
you
catch,
could
I
guy,
did pick
yeah.
up on that.
And she said that she actually included a scene that kind of foreshadows this. And this scene is when they find Church in Judd's yard, and Judd is wearing that big hooded coat and kind of gives this like evil look.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because I didn't really ever think of the story that way.
Yeah, I think when I picked up on it was the scene where he's going to Barry Gage and Judd sits down on the porch to drink, and he's like, "You started this, now you got to finish it," or something like that. And he just kind of had like a kind of grimacing look on his face. I was like, well, he's, you know what? He's kind of the bad guy. Like
Yeah.
he knew what this was, and none of this would have ever happened had he not did what he did.
Yeah,
Still the best character.
that is
Still the best
unfortunate, but you
character.
know, we still love you, Judd. Still in our hearts. I'm gonna get one of them t-shirts that says rest in peace, Judd, and have his picture on it.
Got to
But
get it on a little gravestone in the pet cemetery.
no. So Stephen King purposely wrote into the story how the Creed family suffer from nightmares, visions, and premonitions, implying that they all, especially Ellie, have the shining ability.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
yeah.
I thought that
I
was just
saved that one for last because
thought
I
that
thought
was
that was
just
cool.
the evil fucking with them.
Nope, nope. I thought that was really cool.
That's like kind of Lewis and Ellie seem to be the ones who have it. Like well, yeah, mostly them. The wife kinda, I guess a little bit. She kind of,
Man, they passed it down to Ellie. Man, I
yeah.
don't know.
I don't
But
know.
yeah,
That's cool though.
so that explains though, because I think the director also talked about Ellie. They didn't really talk about it in the movie, but she kind of, they kind of came up and directed Ellie's character as her being kind of a psychic, and you know, Stephen King's like, well, you know, she has the ability to shine, which if you read Stephen King books, that has happened in a lot of his different characters have the shining abilities, not just the shining. But I thought that was really cool way to kind of connect it
Yeah,
into his universe.
I love that. That makes sense because they all see Victor. Like
Yeah,
they all see him at some point, and he's trying to like help them and avoid this from happening. And I think every one of them at some point sees Victor in
and,
this movie.
and Ellie not only sees Victor, but Ellie has visions of things that are going to happen that haven't happened yet.
Yeah, yeah, that's and she has like multiple dreams and visions earlier on in the movie, and that's why I thought it was so cool when you find out later that it's Victor the whole time has been showing her these things. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's I would say out of the facts so far, that is my favorite. That's really cool.
Well, that's going to be your favorite because that's all there is.
Well, save the best for
I'd say the
last.
best for last. Yeah, I started out big, and then you know had a couple big things in there, and then I finished on that. But that's pretty much, you know, all the real. There's a If you're interested in that stuff, go look because there's a couple other things that I didn't include. I didn't want to include everything, but I kind of hit the big stuff that I thought was really interesting. So I did not come up with a favorite kill because we don't really see them.
I did,
Well,
but
you can throw it out
I
there.
put it. I mean, sticking with the rules of best kill, Judd obviously is the only one who we actually see die. I think. Well, we see Gage die, but he's already dead. We don't see him die the first time. We see
Yeah, I
his
hate
like
that kill
evilness
too.
die. Yeah, this is one of those movies though. Even if we did see the deaths, that all the characters, almost all the characters, outside of was it Rachel,
Mm-hmm.
are really liked characters, and you don't really like. You don't want to see Gage get hit by a truck. Like that's horrible.
Yeah, all the characters
You
are
don't want to
good.
see Lewis die. You don't want to see Judd die. It's one of those movies where it's not that satisfying anyway. But yeah, that's the only one we see die. I'm pretty sure.
That So when Lewis actually goes and looks in the house in Judd's house and he finds that Judd with his face chewed off, that is actually a like a fake head they made. And I think they did a really good job because I went back and paused it after I had found that out, and it looks just like him. They did a fantastic job making that mold.
Yeah, they did. I think I kind of cut you off talking about the house earlier when you brought that up, but yes, that they did an amazing job. It's like his like bottom jaw in the front is kind of
Yeah,
eaten
from it,
through.
yeah, from his pretty much the jaw from top lip down is like chewed up, I guess.
And for that being a fake head in 1989, they did a really good job with that. Like just taking a glimpse at it, you can't tell.
Well, a lot of times when they do that, they get the skin tone a little off.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I felt like they nailed that because I thought that was
It's
him
either
just
the
with prosthetics on.
skin tone or the eyes are messed up or something, especially back then. No, it was good. Thought every chance that the FX team had, they did. They killed it.
So you want to do ratings?
Yeah, yeah. We can do ratings.
All right. I didn't write my rating down, but I got it in my brain. Let's go ahead and I'll type it out.
Hey, who do you want to go first?
It doesn't matter. I mean, I'll go first.
All right.
My rating for Pet Cemetery, I gave it a 3.8.
Okay.
Yeah, this this movie is a movie that has always stuck with me. I think the first time I seen it, I was, I don't know, probably 8 years old, and it just never, I don't know, it never disappoints. It's great. I love the story. It's unique. It's a unique story. I love the characters. I love the setting. I love everything about it. It's great. I wish we would have got a longer cut of it. That's the only negative thing I have to say about it. And I'm gonna give it a 3.8.
Okay. Oh, I give it a 4.2.
Oh man, you
It's
went
a
even higher than
classic,
me,
man. It's a
man.
classic Stephen King. He actually wrote the screenplay. So I overall a fantastic movie. The story I loved. It's an original story. Like there's no story like it. This isn't one that's some stories get recycled in different ways 1,000 times. This is an original story. Love that. It's kind of a slow burn throughout the beginning, but they add these creepy scenes in as their character building, kind of through the first half of the movie. Like you have some creepy scenes here and there, but yeah, it's the acting everywhere down to the kids. Like all the actors, I thought did a fantastic job. Like even getting the kids to be that good. It's hard to find kids, especially a 2 year old who can actually act. But thought they did a fantastic job with that. The ending's probably my favorite part. Like the grim ending. And I'll say, watching this now as opposed to watching it when I first seen it as a kid, just being a parent and or being an adult, it is so terrifying watching these parents go through this and kind of seeing Lewis, his grief literally destroy his mind. I thought that was really good, and I can kind of see, like you said, where Stephen King thought he went a little too far. This is very very real possibility as far as losing your kid that way. So yeah, thought it was a great movie. Thought that, like I said, the ending and the story was just fantastic to me. 4.2.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna change it to a 4 point. I'm gonna give it a 4.0. Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
give it a 4.0.
Yeah, I thought you went a little low for man. That's a classic.
It is. It's a really good movie. The only thing that I wish I could change is like I wish we would see the more of the kills. But
Yeah, but this is one of the few times where it's such a good story that they can get away with not showing us the kills, and it's still a good movie.
yeah, I feel like if I would have watched this movie before I read the book, I would have rated it higher. But yeah, unfortunately, it's one of them situations where the story is so good in the original writing that it causes this, like I was saying earlier, it causes the movie to seem like it's just skipping through the story. So that kind of, I don't know, it kind of like messes with my kind of watching of the movie now. But if you like the story, read the book because it's just way more detail. It's the same exact story. They don't really change anything except for a couple things that don't really matter that I'm not really even sure why they changed. Yeah, but yeah, that was the only reason that I originally went with the 3.8 is because it felt like it was skipping through the story.
Well, unfortunately, it's a movie, and they only
Yeah.
have so much time.
Well, they had more time in the studio. Fucking cut it.
Yeah, well, yeah, that sucks. But still, even without the stuff cut, I'm sure there was probably a ton of shit that's missed. And
Well,
you're
I
talking about a book.
officially backspaced it. We got
I'm
4.0
I'm
now.
glad I'm glad my review of my rating was able to change your mind, bring it up some.
Uh,
I have not read the book, so I'll stay at my 4.2.
you should read the book. So that's really it for Stephen King's Pet Sematary 1989. Unless you got anything else you want to go over.
No,
No,
that
that's
about
it for
covers
me.
it. It's a good movie.
Well, that's going to be it for us. Give us some good reviews, give us some likes, give us some follows. We got some social medias floating around out there. Just help us kind of spread the word of the show. We thank you guys for listening. And you got any last words?
Don't bury your pets in an Indian burial ground.
Hmm.
Probably sound advice if you weren't sure before, though. Definitely don't do that.
Yeah. Sometimes dead is better.